Attacks on the show came in from the right. Mike Haley, a spokesperson for the conservative watchdog group Focus on the Family, claimed the show did a disservice to our youth and culture.
They were prepared for bomb threats. When we first went on there, they gave us security briefings, and it was all, oh dear,
The only disappointment I have is that we were trying to elect a president in Florida 5 years ago, that embarrassing moment in American history. And there was so much mayhem going on there that nobody even noticed that we'd premiered. So we kind of missed all that horror that we were expecting.
Surprisingly, criticism also came from within the gay community.
The one misconception about the show that's really annoyed me, and it probably is my fault, is that it's all about sex, considering my character said it in the very first episode.
The thing you need to know is, it's all about sex.
We were showing characters, gay characters, who were not portrayed as they'd ever been portrayed before.
And some people are offended, oh, it's too sexual, it's too sexual. Turn on all my children. I think Susan Lucci's been married 11 times.
We wanted them to be three-dimensional and to express themselves sexually.
By making sex such a seminal part of the show, it's caused us to be fully represented.
It's about gay people and their lives, including their sex lives.
I'd rather get laid.
A lot of people in the gay community didn't want to see this reflection of themselves.
If you don't like the reflection, don't blame it on the mirror.
Queer as Folk was always to us a celebration of gay life, warts and all.
And nothing else, the repetitiveness of the sex of the show has to make it, just bland eventually. So I hope that it has. I really do. I think that's something significant.
It matured over time to the extent that people didn't want to identify with drugs and sex as a part of our culture, which it is, and they are. It started to represent relationships a lot more and family a lot more.
People showed up to see something sort of titillating and something they hadn't seen before, and I hear there's hot guys on there getting naked, but they stayed because of the relationships. They came for the queer, but they stayed for the folk.
If you think it's all about promiscuity and sex, then you're only paying attention to about 20% of the storylines. And that's annoying.
If you don't like the character, it's a stereotype. If you do like the character, it's an archetype. So, but don't tell me these people don't exist. I've known these characters all my life.
Queer as Folk remained unapologetic about its full frontal assault on TV barriers. Sex was indeed a big part of the show's identity, but Queer as Folk also never turned a blind eye to issues facing the gay community. San Francisco's mayor may have started the deluge of gay marriages that quickly turned into a national debate, but the series was ahead of the curve.
Every minority has fought for their rights. If little old ladies at the turn of the century can get out there in the streets and fought for the right to vote, what's your problem?
Everybody made a big deal about the Ben and Michael storyline of getting married in Canada, but the girls had gotten married a year before. We've been handling that issue a lot longer than it's been on the plate.
Their husband and husband.
Who's he?
Our son.
How you define a family in this country, it's changing. And we have to accept and embrace families as they present themselves.
You two make a beautiful couple.
The show's dealing with what's on our news screens right now. The whole exploration of this proposition, mimicking an actual proposition in the States, which seeks to roll back rights that have been won on behalf of gays and lesbians.
An entire election was just won based on that issue, in my mind. Sneaking initiatives onto ballots to then get out the conservative vote, I think is what tipped the scales.
To get people who watch it to start a conversation about things that have been touched on in the show is kind of the job of a show.
Ultimately, I think people will have more respect for you if you're just honest about yourself than if you try and hide or lie, which we're not going to do. AIDS is epidemic. It's a big problem.
Never let anyone fuck you without a condom.
There's barebacking everywhere. There is crystal meth use everywhere.
You want to be beautiful?
The crystal meth stuff and the final episode of that year for me was tough, and so I'll always remember working on that.
I just am watching my entire peer group get absolutely destroyed by this drug, and so I'm really, really glad that we wandered into that maze. Scott and I, who are very, very close friends, could barely look at each other some days, and it was really difficult to be around this person that you loved so much who was treating you like shit for 14 hours a day.
You'll always be a piece of trash from Hazelhurst, Mississippi.
But at least I am not a tweaked out, fucked out Crystal Queen. Get the fuck out!
One of the more interesting moments for us in terms of the types of stories that we tell and the reactions we get to them was when the character of Michael starts seeing Ben, who's HIV positive.
I'd say he's perfect except for one thing. He's positive.
And his mother, Debbie, who is not judgmental, unconditionally loving in that scene. She said, okay, you always wanted a normal mother?
Okay, you got one. I don't want you dating that guy.
I don't care what you want!
And people went nuts over this. Well, that's all politics. What we did was just create a story about human nature.
So it was interesting to do that through the most accepting person on the show.
For the first time in my life, I wish my son wasn't gay.
The episodes with Michael coming to terms with having sex with Ben when he has HIV really threw the audience for a loop. We got a lot of hate mail because Michael wouldn't do it right away. And I think the healthiest thing is when you play out a storyline as real as possible and then let the audience have whatever reaction they will have.
Brian's father's death, I think, is one of the best episodes we've ever done. There's that image at the very end when Gail takes his father's bowling ball and bowls it down the street into the fog, and he just stands there with his arms up just like, I'm finally fucking free.
So long, Jack.
It's just a masterpiece of acting and directing. Gail told me to say something nice. There you have it, Gail Harold.
Sharon and Jack, the scene in Debbie's house where she tells him to fuck off, basically.
You used me!
And you used me. I think you better leave. Don't bother coming back until you say you're sorry.
Don't you worry, because I'm never coming back. You want an apology? Here's my apology. Fuck you, little brother. Fuck you.
It was so simple and straightforward and heavy, like really heavy, without any lights, no music, no drugs, no sex.
It was a horrible, painful scene, but it was wonderful to play.
It's one of the most powerful things I've seen on the show.
I like getting down and dirty. What the hell is that supposed to mean?
My favorite single scene is the scene where...
I wish we could do it right now.
Why not? Emmett and George sneak into the bathroom in the airplane and for a little mile-high rendezvous. And George has a heart attack and dies.
You all right, George? George?
I really love it because it starts off sort of romantic, and then it turns kind of naughty and sexy, and then it turns kind of funny, and then it just turns horrifying and heartbreaking.
Somebody help us, please!
I think it's the kind of thing you'll never, ever see anywhere else. It's sort of uniquely Queer as Folk.
Fags deserve to die!
I think it's interesting that we're going off the air now that all these issues are out there, and it's like, okay, government, people, figure it out.
Whether inspiring dissent or applause, the show has always provoked fervent reactions, but the voices of its fans have remained the loudest, echoed on dozens of websites, at international conventions, and in many moving letters.
We did a show for a gay audience, but everyone was shocked, including us, that the huge, great gobs of straight audience was coming to us and watching the show.
We get a lot of mail from straight women who love the show, who speak about the fact that it was never part of their lives before, and how accepting and happy they are that they have a new perspective.
When you go out with these kids and we do these premieres and public appearances for them, the people go bonkers. I mean, bonkers.
For me, that was shocking. And it was very hard to process.
We get responses and letters all the time from individual people who have been personally affected, and that's what matters.
There's so many gay people in the country who don't have much connection to a larger world. I think it's very important for them.
I knew that it was going to have the potential to reach Middle America.
For me, it's been the sadder circumstances that have made me aware of the impact of the show.
The first season started airing, and I got a letter from a kid in Nebraska. He was the only gay person he knew, and he saw our show, and he felt like he belonged to something for the first time in his life.
The first time it hit me, it was the first season. We shot 3 days straight, and I was in like every scene. I remember by the third day, I was just like going a little crazy, and I went back into my dressing room, and there was a letter there, and out fell this little picture of this little boy named Brady. At the very end of the letter, she said, the bottom line is you're making this country a better place for my child, and I thank you for that. And it just stopped me. And I just let go of all the things that were going wrong that day, and I thought, oh God, I'm doing something good here.